Hi everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how to replace the antenna cable to your RV Winegard antenna. Mine has gotten to the point where the rubber coating on the outside of the wire has completely degraded and come off of the wire. So I'm going to be replacing that and also the rubber boots that go on the end of the coax cable. So here we go. What you'll need is a RG6 coax cable or the 5-foot model CX0605, which is from Winegard. And you can see here, this is the recommended cable for that Winegard antenna. The other thing you're going to need are the rubber boots. And I have already replaced one of the rubber boots. One thing is these rubber boots are designed to go on the end of a cable that doesn't already have the fitting on there. So if you're going to use your own cable and crimp these on there, these rubber boots will go on just fine. But I'm going to show you today how I got mine on without removing the end of the cable. And what I used was the end of a pin, and I was able to take that pin, and by putting it into the rubber boot first, it worked as a smooth guide to push its way through the rubber without catching, because the ends of these are caught. Another way you could do it is actually just wrapping electric tape on here and kind of forming a point to that and then pushing it through the rubber boot, and then it won't gouge the rubber and catch, and then once you get it through you can remove the tape. But I just used this pin by putting it on the end of the cable. I was able to push it through the rubber. As you can see, this cable is completely corroded down to just the bare metal on the inside, which can cause problems with reception. And the rubber boot completely cracked and pointless. So I'm going to be replacing that today. At this end of my antenna, the other rubber boot, which is kind of sealed into the sealant, is here. Oh, and I'm just now noticing this cable actually runs through the roof, which I was worried about. But what I'll end up doing is splicing an end here onto this cable. Using a splice in the line, I'll be able to connect this end into that splice, and then the rubber boot will slide down over those two pieces. That way I don't have to feed this line all the way through the ceiling and try to get it to come through the wall and to the receptacle. So here you just want to make a thin slice into the coating. You don't really want to cut any of the metal because that's going to get peeled back. So just make a thin cut. Even if you don't go all the way through the rubber, it'll still pull off. So I've made 4 little slices into that aluminum around the plastic, and now I'm just peeling that back down too. So there you have it after it's peeled back. One thing to note is this wire or cable is an RG59. The other type that you'll be using is the RG6, which is a little bit thicker than the RG59. So you got to make sure you get the right connector for that. The splice doesn't matter. It'll fit either one because the threads are the same. So this connection will slide down over the plastic part. Will go into that center, and then the metal part will all be on that second ring in the outer ring, all within underneath, and then it'll get crimped. This copper wire will be sticking through that hole there. So when it's done, you'll have the copper sticking through, just a tiny bit of the plastics coming through, that's okay, as long as no other metal is coming through that hole. And it's all in underneath this. So now when I crimp this down, I will be able to keep that from sliding back off, and that will make a nice little connection. So now all I have to do is put in this splice piece, so when my new cable gets run through here, I'll have something to connect to. So now we'll just slide this old cable out of here and hopefully be able to feed in the other one without having to cut off the end to feed it. So I have fed the new coax cable through this hole up here, through that plastic grommet, keeps it from scraping on the aluminum. I've removed this plastic here because it's going to catch on its way out, and I'm hoping to be able to just grab that edge right there with a little piece of needle nose, pull it through, replace this plastic grommet back over that hole. This part's definitely the tricky part, getting that to come through. I was able to crimp just a little bit here with the needle nose, trying not to mess up any of those threads in there. While pushing on the cable from the other hole, I was able to guide it up into this spot here. It still wants to catch in along these edges because that metal's sharp, but I think with the needle nose and a little more pressure, I'll be able to get that through. So I was able to get that through. I now have a new cable through the old antenna, and I will be able to now put the rubber boot on this end and then get it tightened down here into this with the rubber boot covering all that up, and then I'll reseal. And I do know that this is all cracked. I will be going over all of this here in the near future, redoing all this sealant to make sure that that's actually doing its job. And when I do it, I will reseal that boot down to this edge here, but it does have this little lip that keeps moisture from going down in there, which is nice. So this is the other method I was talking about. You can just wrap black wire tape around that, get a kind of a thin skinny part there that will fit into this, get it to go through, and then you can pull it through, and this tape kind of help it go through this thing. I've also put a little bit of soap down in there just to kind of help it glide through it a little easier. Redone that, made it just a little bit longer. Found the first one didn't quite come in far enough I could reach it even with the needle nose. So hopefully this one I can kind of grab onto that tape and then force this down onto there. So after 2 tries with the tape, I've realized that's just not going to work, and I've gone back to using the pin top that I had before with kind of the rounded edge, and then that will go in through here, put a little bit of soap on there for a lubricant, but I still did use the black tape to hold the pin on there, allow me to push it through. And there we go, it's on its way through right now. Okay, there you have it. We have a new coax cable running through, and connected. One thing to note, you do want to use some pliers or crescent wrenches, tighten up those fittings where it splices. Here's one thing, is because of that splice, this boot wasn't long enough to fit over the whole thing. It's actually forcing a little bit of the back of that connector out. So when I coat this here, I'm going to be replacing some of this up here, coating this with a rubber coating around that also, just to keep that out of the weather and keep moisture from going down in through that piece. The other thing to note, I do realize that I have connected a RG6 cable to an R59. I realize that that kind of eliminates the usefulness of the R6 cable. It's just a little bit thicker size, so knowing going into this that you'd have to replace this through the roof and you have to splice on those connectors, might as well go ahead and feed the line all the way from the interior outlet up through by connecting your new line to the old one and just pulling it up through the roof here, if you can get it to do it. I just already had the cable, and this was an easy fix. So thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe or like, and hopefully in the future you'll see more videos. Next project, definitely this. I'm also going to be attaching a wingman to this antenna, just to see if I get any change in the reception. Not sure that I will, but I'm going to give it a shot.